Endava ideates and delivers flexible, scalable technology platforms and intelligent digital experiences to help companies fuel the rapid ongoing transformation of their business. In this session, they will discuss the role of insurance companies in expediting the role of autonomous technology and enabling the future of mobility. Find out how technology companies can help insurers to match new customer expectations and deliver great experiences. Please welcome Endava.
Welcome everybody, and thank you very much for that very warm introduction. That was great. Before I start, it's been a bit weird. We've been speaking about what we're about to speak about by a cat before, and there were far more people in this audience when a cat was talking about it, so I don't know what that says about me, but it says a lot about the way in which AI is changing even the face of these conferences. Thank you very much for joining us today. Paul and I were very excited to come here and talk about something a little bit different at these conferences. We've sat here for the last couple of days and we've heard some great topics. We've spoken to some great people, but what I find is that there's a common denominator in a lot of the conversations that are had. And I've been doing this for 10 years, and it's the same conversations we've been having for 10 years, and I can't really connect any of that to my life. I can connect it to what I do in my profession, but I can do nothing. My mum and my dad, my brothers and sisters, they don't know anything about what I'm doing and how it affects their life. But they love autonomous vehicles, and insurers play a massive part in making that a reality. We thought that perhaps we'd come and speak about that today, and we've invited Paul from Octo Telematics along as well, because what they're doing in that space is incredible, and that's why Endava have partnered with them. So, Paul, welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, everybody. Really fantastic to be here at this awesome conference. Really enjoyed it over the past couple of days. Paul Middle from Octo Telematics. So I've been with Octo for the past 3 months. I'm still relatively new to the organization. I'm really an insurer at heart. So I was 27 years in an insurance company, both at RSA and then more recently at Tesco Bank. But the last 10 or 12 years or so within insurance have been working within the connected insurance space, within the telematics space. So taking telematics products and propositions to market and partnering with the likes of Octo. But at Octo, we are a telematics company, but we consider ourselves as a data analytics organization. So effectively enabling insurers, fleets, leasing organizations to utilize data in a way that helps them to price, underwrite, and almost most importantly, I think, manage claims and the customer experience in a way that they are unable to do without the use of that data. Really great to be here and join you guys and join Joe on stage this morning.
Thank you. Yeah, so at Endava, we're not a pure telematics company. In fact, it's always been a bit of a gap for us in the insurance space, and so partnering with Paul, with Octo, was a very obvious step for us, because our customers are asking us all the time, how do we connect the data that is everywhere around us into the creation of insurance products? At Endava, we're 13,000 people. We are in 14 different verticals. Insurance is third largest, but mobility, telco, and payments and banking are far above that. And we did some thinking a couple of years ago, felt we'd need to play to our strengths, and our strengths are our clients. And what we wanted to do was bring all of that strength we had from our other verticals and combine them with all the strength we have in the insurance vertical. And we started bringing our clients together to try and answer some of the insurance challenges we were getting. And one of them was around autonomous vehicles. We work with one of the largest car insurers in the UK. That's where I'm from. My funny accent is Scottish, but I live in London. And we work with one of the largest car insurers, and they have a special department dedicated in creating underwriting products for autonomous vehicles and autonomous technology. And for us, we jumped 2 feet and all our hands and everything else into that, because that is the future. That is where we're going. Now, one of the bits that Paul and I wrestle with is how far in the future are autonomous vehicles a fad? Are they inevitable? And we'll talk about that in the next few minutes, but I think from my perspective, it's not about autonomous vehicles as this is the 5-year gain. It's about the technology and the elements that lead us up to that point. And that is where we'll see the next round of innovation. And it's that innovation and it's that incredible technology acceleration that we have seen being influenced by bringing OEMs and insurers together and understanding how technology like Paul's or Octo can connect it. So, Paul, from your perspective and your vast experience inside the insurance industry, what is it that telematics brings to insurance companies to be able to eventually lead us to having autonomous cars on our road?
Yeah, and it's a really good question, and I kind of hesitate when I say the words, but it's about data, and this conversation. I don't want this conversation to just be about data, but ultimately it's the thing that is going to enable insurers to better understand the risk that they're insuring when it comes to autonomous vehicles. What we can do at Octo is help insurers get on that journey with aftermarket data. So using telematics data to help them understand risk in a much more effective and efficient way, rather than it being something that they're completely blind to. But data is critical to them. There's been some interesting studies around autonomous vehicles. One of the challenges that insurers have is that most insurers. Actually, let's just do a quick check. How many insurers have we got in the room? If you can just put your hand up. And how many of those people that have put their hands up, you might not be working with it directly, but do you know that your insurance company has been looking at autonomous vehicles, understanding how to underwrite autonomous vehicles? A lot fewer hands. And that's not a surprise. And coming from an insurance company myself, it's not a surprise that it's hard for a lot of insurers to get on that journey, to understand the data. Because there isn't a lot of data around, but it is about ultimately getting on that journey with the data to help them get to the point of understanding what risk they're actually going to underwrite. There was a study that was done by a company called Apollo, where they actually managed to get hold of quite a large proportion of autonomous data. And they actually looked at the risk of autonomous vehicles versus traditional manually driven vehicles. And the autonomous vehicles were 20 times safer than manually driven vehicles. Now, that might not be a surprise, but the interesting thing about that is insurers are using traditional risk factors to understand their risk. When it comes to autonomy, the data is different. There's things like nighttime driving that insurance companies will look at and go, that's high risk. In an autonomous vehicle, that really makes no difference. The autonomous vehicle can operate in just the same way at nighttime as it can do during the day. So insurers have got to start to think differently about how they understand the data that is being collected through autonomy and autonomous vehicles. And then the other point is, where within the organization do they put that? Where is it within the organization that autonomous vehicles is situated? Is it in the traditional motor vertical? Well, actually, the traditional motor vertical isn't set up in a way to understand that quite yet. So actually, it might need to be a whole new separate vertical in terms of understanding how we use that data. But it's, what they can do is get on the journey through the use of telematics data. Telematics is the opportunity where we can start to understand risk much better than we can do without the data.
Yeah, I'd first like to congratulate those underwriters in the room who put their hands up in a room full of insurtechs, that they are insurers. You're going to be regretting that when you are ambushed at the door. No, it's the purpose of data, I think, which is an interesting connection with the subject we had before. The purpose of data for insurers when they first realized that they could monetize it was to make more money out of it. And of course, that's why we're all here. But making the purpose of that data to create a safer environment for drivers to be in, for our families to be in, is, I think, where the new direction of OEMs in using data, insurers using that data is going to be. And certainly at Endava, we felt that massively within the last few years, where insurers are no longer asking us to connect them to data because they want to have a better insight. They're asking us to connect them to data because they want to be able to interact and communicate and engage with organizations that they wouldn't traditionally engage with. And OEMs being one of them, we have a large amount of car manufacturers who sit on our books and ask us to do all sorts of things. And us bringing the initiative to them, of bringing insurers to their room and saying, have you ever spoken to these guys? This is the enrichment you can do by connecting with them, has been a massive step. And it's one of the reasons, Octo as well, we love that mission about safety, and that's big in your DNA. It's not about, getting as much data as possible out of the car. It's about getting intelligent data out of the car to create that safer piece and to create a personalized, a more preventative product. I think that's the responsibility of insurers as well. I think they have a responsibility with all the knowledge and all the people they have and all the money they have to create that safer environment. And the vehicles are the same. I just want to make one point. We've got a fantastic relationship with Waymo and Tesla, and they invited me out to Vegas. I don't know if any of you have been in the Boring Company tunnels to go in their cars. It's absolutely terrifying for about 10 seconds being in this car that's driving with nobody. But then you realize that you are in the safest place you could possibly be. That car is going 50 miles an hour through a tunnel, but there's no danger around it. That is where we are starting on that journey about creating these environments where that car knew everything around it and therefore could create a really cool, safe environment for me to be doing other things and focusing my brain on other things when I was in that car. So if data is key, what about the value that insurers can get by engaging with OEMs with that data? Is that going to evolve the products that insurers have, or is it going to evolve the cars that we get on the road? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. It's probably both of those things. So, the data that's available to insurers, whether it be when we get to autonomous data, in the meantime, it's aftermarket telematics data. Clearly, that enables them to create new and interesting propositions. But as you say, for us, it's ultimately about safety. So at Octo, our mission, if you like, is something called Vision Zero, which is all about zero crash, zero pollution, zero congestion, which kind of links into the point that you were making, Jai, around almost smart cities being the thing that we want to try and create. And we do a lot of work in the smart cities environment where, again, it's about the data and connecting that data to ultimately enable an urban area to operate much more effectively. What insurers can start to do is get engaged in that opportunity because, again, that's about data. It's about understanding the movement of vehicles around urban locations. And they can get on board and start to create products and propositions that utilize the use of that data. And bring something to consumers, because that's the other challenge that I think that telematics connected car data has had historically, is consumers not necessarily being completely on board with it and wanting to give up that extra bit of information about what they're doing, the movement that they're making, and how they're transitioning around in their vehicles. But actually, if we can take it to another level and start to create products and propositions that are about value-add experiences, and it being about mobility and making mobility easier through the use of the data, then I think that's a really interesting space that we can start to move to.
It's very geographical that in the UK, I feel, and actually there have been studies done about it, about how we just don't want to give over our data. My dad won't press any buttons on any computer in case that they take his DNA away. But in the US and in Europe, we're far more giving and far more understanding that it creates a better customer experience by giving that data away. And so I think that is where the traction needs to be. Another point that I think is really interesting about the auto world and insurance is that car ownership is changing. I've never owned a car. I mean, I only started driving 6 years ago, and I was a late bloomer in the driving, but I went straight to leasing. And I know you lease a car, Paul, and many of the people do. People don't own cars as much anymore. And someone made a point to me the other day that in 2030, we'll stop selling combustion engines in the UK, and we'll start bringing electric vehicles only into the UK. Whether that happens or not is another point to debate, but if that does happen, we are 2 lease cycles away from people having electric cars on the road as a common thing, more common than it is now. And it's in those electric cars that the technology exists to connect insurers to that data. So if we are 2 lease cycles away, and insurers operate at half the speed of everyone else, sorry, but sometimes they do, we're not that far away from having a product in place that can be able to insure someone with all this tech. Yes, we have radars and we have all sorts of things in our cars right now, but insurers aren't connecting to it. My insurer doesn't know that I once, maybe in that journey, I broke 5 meters too early and 5 meters too late and nearly hit that car. And if they did, perhaps they would change the way in which they insured me. And so connecting the insurers to OEMs can also give them a view of how do they stay relevant in the market. I know that perhaps you and I may disagree on this, but car tech is going far faster than insurance tech is. You go to a car conference, and they're talking about things which are beyond your brain when you try and comprehend it. You get in one of the Waymo cars, and you think, I can't believe it can do this. Today we've got some robot dogs out there. That's the introduction of it into the insurance world. We had that 10 years ago in car conferences. So car tech is really advancing, but insurers are not keeping up with it. They don't know what's coming up next. They don't know what tech's in that car. And so one of the really key parts of, I feel, my role at Endava is to sometimes force them, but handhold insurers into the rooms with Mercedes and with Tesla and with Seat and with Volkswagen and get them to look at the cars that they're doing. One of the coolest projects I was involved with at Endava was with Audi, and we built over the COVID period a virtual reality view of what their car battery engines look like, because their engineers wanted to work on the e-tron car from their houses. And so we got them all VR headsets, and we had them sitting there looking at the cars. And we brought an insurer into that room, and they were like, this is incredible, I didn't know that. What's that piece of tech for there? Oh yeah, that registers live the cornering speed that you can get round. And I could see them sitting there going, that's what my rating engine should look like. It should know what the cornering speed is coming round. And if we can do that, we can create these really personalized products, and we can enable these insurers to be far more relevant inside the market. And I think that relevance, and this is where the controversial bit comes out in me, I think that relevance will translate in the future into not really seeing insurers at these types of conferences. I will be sitting here with car manufacturers who will be offering products with insurers backing them into the market. Because I think that's probably where we're going. I don't think the generation below me are going to know how to go and buy insurance directly from an insurer. I think they're going to be buying insurance from their car. We work with Polestar in Endava, and what we've been doing with them is creating this engaging front end inside their car so they can purchase things inside their car. Now that might not seem very advanced to those who have Polestar, but that's you get in my Volkswagen, you can't do that there. Why don't we introduce insurance into there? With the lease market changing and people not buying cars anymore and instead getting in a car for that 1 hour journey, I want to be able to get into the car and buy my insurance through the car. That should be common. That's tech we have now, and it knows how to insure me, how to live insure me, because it uses all the tech within there. And we're not talking about something mega advanced here, Paul. We're talking about getting an insurer and Polestar in a room and giving them a full view of what that looks like, and then being able to tell them that, and even the technology exists through companies like Octo to be able to make that connection real, make that connection effective and value adding, because that is where we are now. The value add is, okay, increase safety, but also the value add for insurers is that there's a massive gap, and that gap can be filled by insurers, and that gap can be premiums to drivers who want to take a car for an hour, and that premium is going to be small for them but large on the larger scale. Insurers have a load of money to make in that space.
And I think it's a good point. I think insurers have... insurance companies have been speaking to OEMs for a very long time. So insurance companies have underwritten car manufacturers' insurance for years. I think the challenge has been insurance companies have spoken to the finance part of the OEM. So not into the manufacturing, not into the data, not into the understanding actually what's going on with the production of the vehicle and the data it can collect. So there has been that connection, but it's been the wrong connection if we're thinking about how do we get insurers and OEMs talking together and working more closely together to understand the data that's available. And I think that's the opportunity that insurance companies have got. That's the opportunities that OEMs have got. Because OEMs still absolutely have to rely on insurers. They can't do this on their own. Jai's talking about buying insurance directly from his vehicle. There still needs to be an insurance company sat behind that, and that's where insurers will continue to need to play a very important role, because insurance is a complicated subject. Car manufacturers don't fully understand it, but they want to be able to enter into that world, partly because of monetization of the data, but also to make their own customer experience more efficient. And it's the role of the likes of Octo and others in the market that we can help in that conversation. So insurers, it's unlikely that insurers are going to go and integrate with all of the different OEMs. That's going to take too long, it's going to be too expensive. And insurers want access to volume of information, volumes of vehicles on the road, which is why aftermarket telematics is still going to be the predominant way in which insurers are going to be able to collect data. But for a data integration layer to be created between those OEMs and the insurance market is where we see lots of opportunity. And actually it's assisting in the conversation that Jai was referring to between OEMs and insurers. We can come in and play a role as the data integrator. We can plug into all of the OEMs, run that data through our algorithms, and then pass that data on to insurers in a much more coherent way. Because the other thing is the data that's coming out of all the OEMs is all very different. So it's all at different frequency or at different quality, and they're all at different points in terms of their own development of creating that data. So we can come in and help them get on board and get on that journey and get that conversation going.
We make it sound very easy standing here and go, oh yeah, we can do this, but there's obviously challenges and barriers that stand in the way. And I think if these conferences are for anything, it's to find antidotes to some of those challenges that insurers have. So what would you say some of the key challenges are to getting insurers more connected with the data inside cars and ultimately leading towards being able to be that first insurer that can underwrite an autonomous vehicle on the road? What would some of those challenges be?
Yeah, and this could sound very broad brush, because there are insurers that are very active in this space. There are insurers that have been working in this for quite some time, and clearly there's insurers in the room that are getting to the point of thinking, investing in what autonomy means and trying to get ahead of the game. But many insurers are still, I think, further back. And even for those that have invested in telematics and have telematics products, they're probably still not necessarily utilizing the data to its full extent. And that's partly about priorities internally. It's partly about legacy systems and investment. And it's hard to innovate sometimes inside a big, large corporate insurer. I know that. I've sat in a big corporate insurer trying to innovate, and it's difficult competing against the mothership, if you like, the core products. So to get your voice heard, to get the investment, to get the time and the effort into thinking about what's not going to happen this year, but what's happening 12 months' time, 24 months' time, 36 months' time, 10 years' time, it's sometimes hard to get that conversation going internally and getting the right focus for different organizations to be able to do that.
One of the reasons you're here is to stop me saying things like all insurers don't know how to connect with their data. Obviously, there are the underwriters that are doing it very well, but the vast majority are not. One of the most ironic things about working in the insurance market is that we work in a world of risk, but insurers are the most risk-adverse people on the planet. They don't want to do anything when it comes to technology if there's a potential risk against it. I see that changing, but it's something that when we can show real value through companies like Octo to those insurers, and with Endava facilitating those two things together, that risk is mitigated slightly because we can take that pressure off them. I think I want to talk about attention span as well. Again, ironic because I have a very small attention span, but technical attention span for underwriters is something that really needs to be worked on, and consistency when they're going forward and reaching that goal. Autonomous vehicles might feel like a long way away for us all, and yeah, it probably is. And I encourage you all to go and talk to Waymo and talk to Tesla and get in their cars, their autonomous cars around London or the cities that you're in. They're brilliant. But understand the elements of the tech inside there, because it's those individual elements, it's those telematic elements which will lead us to being up there. And it's all, for us, it's all about iteratively introducing that bit of technology into the insurance world, and then also the other way around, introducing how insurers can connect iteratively with OEMs to try and bring that all and bring a fuller picture. I think selfishly as well, I would like sexier subjects when I come to a conference. I would like to be able to talk about autonomous cars with reality. I'd like to not have a Formula One car sitting at the front door. I'd like to be transported to the front door in an autonomous car insured by one of the insurers here. I'd like that. I'd like that to be able to something that I can attract the younger generation and the generation below me to come to these conferences and talk about things like this, because sometimes I worry that the subjects about omni-channel distribution are slightly inaccessible for those who really want to talk about something that's a little bit more exciting. So, got a couple minutes left. I want to do a bit of appealing to the people we both do, a little bit appealing to the audience that we've got, and to bring back to your guys. What would be your takeaway for insurers, and if there's any OEMs in the room, what would be your takeaway for them?
I mean, it's probably slightly off topic from an autonomous perspective, but certainly from a connected car data point of view, which is obviously getting everybody on the journey towards understanding autonomy. The biggest opportunity that I think within the world of connected car data today is crash and claims management. So I think there is a huge opportunity for insurers to produce lots of value and benefit, not only for them, but for their consumers, their customers, around using connected car data at point of crash and point of claims. I mean, if there's any, I would say if there's any claims directors, chief claims officers here at this event, then I'd love to be having conversations with you guys, because traditionally, telematics organizations like Okta have probably spoken to pricing directors, underwriting directors, product managers. It's all been about pricing, underwriting, whereas there's a huge opportunity, much more value to be had through the use of the data at point of crash and point of claim, particularly in the current economic environment where claims inflation has gone through the roof. Actually, cost of claim now is just so much more expensive, so much more of a bigger problem for insurers. So the role of connected car data, the role that it can play in helping mitigate against some of that cost by shortening the time it takes to get vehicles repaired, shortening the time it takes to even admit liability. If we know liability because we can see it in the data, well, let's make that decision really quickly, and we can do that using the data itself. But also from a consumer's point of view, telematics to a certain extent has suffered because we all have been a bit concerned about being monitored when we drive our car. But actually knowing that, being reassured by the fact that actually my insurer knows when I've had an accident and then can help me through that process and that journey much more effectively than they can do without having access to that information.
Yeah, for me, it's something we've already spoken about. If you're an insurer in the room, or you're an insurtech in the room, bring the car companies, the other technology companies into the room with you. I was having a conversation with one of our clients who's here, and his big push to me was, can you just be a little bit more proactive and bold in bringing this technology to our doors? Do that, be bold with insurers. Take them into the space where you might bring a car insurer and a car company together and get them to understand each other's world, because although we've got some fantastic underwriters in the room today who've already been doing that, there isn't enough knowledge known. At Endava, and this is a plug obviously, but Endava, that's what we do. We connect people together. We don't have products, but we have technical teams that we connect with industry experts and bring them together and bring the strength, which is our clients, together into that room. And when we've brought car companies and insurers into the room together, it's been where all that spark and excitement has been, and it's enabled people like me to sit with silly shirts and silly accents on stage and talk to you today about this stuff. So yeah, be bolder, connect your OEMs, talk to companies like Octo and get it done, because I can promise you the generation below want this type of subject to be what's talked about at these conferences. So yeah, thank you very much to ITC DIA, and thank you very much to everyone else.